Okay, in this video, I'd like to talk about the orbs that are circling MH370 just before it's disappeared and sucked into a wormhole. What's going on with those orbs is they're setting up a condition called plasma confinement in the localized area of the atmosphere. And they start going left in their rotation because left is counterclockwise, and that is 0.618, the complete opposite of the golden ratio of 1.618, which would be used in materialization. So they're going left counterclockwise, and I'm going to explain this whole thing to you. It's really simple. It doesn't take any numbers or a mathematician to figure this one out. So let's break it down. Okay, the first thing that you got to take into account is that the Earth is just a giant one of these, a magnet. It's no different than this ring magnet here. The Earth, just like this magnet, has all its magnetism on the outside. On the inside, just like this ring magnet, is where all the dielectricity is, or counterspace, or ground. This ring magnet has its magnetic field all the way on the periphery, just like the Earth has its magnetic fields. All the dielectricity is in the dead center of this thing. And if you could see the dead center, there would be 0 Gauss, 0 G, because there's 0 magnetism at the core. So this condition is what they're making the plane do in that localized area. You only have 2 dimensions to work with. You got space and you got counterspace. Space is represented by the toroid, or the donut shape, and counterspace is represented by the hourglass or the hyperboloid. Okay, so counterspace would be dielectricity, space would be magnetism. This is the seen, this is the unseen. So what happens is when you're rotating clockwise, right, you're creating matter and light, and you have basically a white hole effect going on here. And with this, you would also have time, because you would have frequency or modulation. Okay, so the opposite of that would be 0.618. So you would be spinning to the left. You'd have the complete opposite effect. You'd have dark, it'd be a black hole, and to where space and electromagnetism is light speed, this would be faster than light. So when you're dealing with shapes in matter, the tetrahedron is so very important because of this right here. And this is what most people don't understand. And this is where they threw the electron at everybody, and everybody bought it. But this was known in the early 1900s by Tesla and Steinmetz and everybody that came up with your electrical power grid, because electricity doesn't function any other way. You can't have electricity without having magnetism and dielectricity in a geometric form. Without one, you don't have electricity, and without the other, you don't have it. If you only have one of each, you won't have it. So what they're doing, these craft, is they're making the whole thing just dielectricity. They're trying to get this whole area to be just dielectricity and not magnetism. They're trying not to let any magnetism get to the dielectricity. So that's what I'm saying about creating an electromagnetic bottle. You're just trying to shield out the magnetism in this area, and there's different ways to do it. So this other thing is to keep in mind, it's really important to remember, is that an AC generator is just a magnet inside out. This is according to Ken Wheeler. So what he's talking about is an AC generator. An AC generator has all of its dielectricity on the outside and all its magnetism on the inside, to where this magnet has all the magnetism on the outside and all the dielectricity on the inside. It's completely flipped. So they're just trying to empty out the area of magnetism. And the other reason that the tetrahedron is so important is because it's the structure of water. This is the Pythagorean secret to incommensurability. 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. In that geometry is what consciousness or dielectricity operates on. It's faster than light. And the other thing that you must keep in mind is that everything's not carbon-based like they're telling you it is. Everything is hydrogen-based, because hydrogen's the most abundant element in the universe. And without that water molecule, everything would just be dust in the wind. So it's all about the light spectrum. So when you start at a 0 point and you would start rotation to the right, clockwise, 1.618, you would start scaling up your matter. And what I mean is, if you look at the Platonic solids, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Okay, in the 5 Platonic solids, here you got the tetrahedron, the cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. So, and then this one is the star tetrahedron, which is the Merkaba. So when you would start in dielectricity, this would represent magnetism. This is your 0. So here's your space, here's your counter space. And this shows how in energy, the smaller the space, the higher capacitance. Meaning, as you increase in your scale, the smaller the space gets, the higher that your energy capacitance gets. So when it reaches such a level, then it basically blasts and then flips back around and dumps into the dielectric or in the counter space. So what's going on is, first off, you'd have your sphere, and that would represent counter space or the ether. So it says the surfaces of a regular polyhedra are sphere-like. If they were made of rubber, okay, you could put them all into spheres. So the regular polyhedra have the following property, that there are numbers n and m such that every face is a regular n gone, and every vortex is in order m. So what they're saying is this represents the ether here. And when you get to the tetrahedron at the 0, it has 1 foot in space, 1 foot in counter space. So that's what I'm saying. When the tetrahedron starts spinning either to the right or to the left, it's either materializing to the right or it's dematerializing to the left. Here would be basically your light spectrum where it starts, and here would be where your dielectricity starts, your black hole starts. So here would be your white hole, and then here would be your counter space, black hole. So the tetrahedron is really interesting too, because the tetrahedron is the only shape that can turn itself inside out. It's got 3 positive edges and 3 negative edges. So this has a major effect when something like that goes into rotation, because it's creating ether churn in the local area. The tetrahedron symbolizes harmony, equilibrium. So the four corners point equally distant from each other. There's no stress or strain or tension in the tetrahedron, rather at rest or zero. By contrast, the cornered points of the cube lie at different distances from each other, which result in conditions of everlasting stress. So this tetrahedron is at rest, or at zero, but it's got a foot in both doors, in both space and counterspace, simultaneously. Depending on when it goes into rotation is whether it's either building or taking down. Okay, so then you get into the cube as you step up. So the cube is the basic form of matter. It symbolizes harmony and equilibrium. So as you keep stepping up to 5 platonic solids, until you get to that star tetrahedron, the Merkaba, it's the flower of life, and that thing contains all of Metatron's cubes, and within it, all 5 platonic solids. So all these suckers are in this one. So, real interesting things happen when you start to spin that thing, because here at the center, you see the flower of life pattern. That 6-pointed star. So what I mean is, when you start spinning tetrahedrons, you start with these spheres on the outside, and just like you're starting with the sphere for ether. So here would be your ether. When you go into rotation, you start reaching out and touching every one of these points, because then you branch out into other areas instead of just the local area. And with enough rotation, you can change matter. So this is my spinning delta T. And as you can see, it's a tetrahedron up and it's a tetrahedron down. I'm not gonna plug this thing in and spin it for y'all right now, because I'm just going to demonstrate. If you want to watch my other videos, you can see it spinning. But what this thing does when it goes into rotation, it starts churning the ether. So, like I said, magnetism is represented by the donut or the toroid or the torus. Counterspace is represented by the hyperboloid, this hourglass looking shape. So this would represent magnetism or space. This would represent counterspace. So this is exactly what this object shows you. When you start spinning this thing, you can see the donut here. And when it's spun fast enough, you can start seeing the hourglass shape here. So that's the hourglass, that's counterspace, and then this would be your spatial. So when this thing's spinning to the left, it's dematerializing. But when spun the other way, to the right, it's 1.6180. It's materializing. It's creating matter. Matter is just high energy light. So that's how this whole thing is working. When those craft get into that left-hand rotation, around around the aircraft, they're churning the ether, and you can actually see in my other videos, this thing, it completely starts changing shape and warping the area. And if it were spun fast enough, this thing would cease to exist in the visible universe because it'd be gone. And that's a fact. So it's all about rotation, and this is the key to understanding everything. You don't need no math to figure this one out. You don't need any electrons to figure this one out. And you don't need anybody that's been regurgitating all this science that's come out since they threw everybody this big L. It's real easy to understand. And this is the reason that they give everybody all the entertainment and all the stupid stuff that everybody feeds into instead of this stuff. Because everybody can understand it. It's super simple. You don't need no PhD like they want to tell you. Thanks for watching.